In today's tutorial, it's going to be all about table functions. To get started, let's go to server script service and add a script. Let's declare a table local a equals to curly brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And to use a table function, you're going to start with table, and then you put a dot, and then you get a list of functions. So today's tutorial, we're going to go through and explore all of these functions available in Roblox. Let's start with the first one here, clear. So basically, table clear is going to clear our table. So here I have a test table, and I use table clear to clear table A. So my table initially has 7 elements, and after table clear, it should have 0 elements. Let's print it out and take a look. Here it is. As you can see, script line number 4, I printed the table A, and table A is an empty table. Let's now move on to our next table function. Our next table function is table.concat. So basically, table.concat is going to convert a table into a string. So I'm just going to declare a local variable. I'll call it B, and I'll set it equal to table.concat, and I'm going to print it out. I'm going to print out B. And table.concat has a few different parameters that you can use. For example, you can set it like this. You can give it a separator. So you just do comma, and you put the separator string into the second parameter. Let's say I put a dash in there. So basically, it's gonna print out, it's gonna put the table into a string separated by the dash, which we're gonna print out, and we'll see in a few minutes or a few seconds. Now table.concat has 2 other parameters that you can use. So let's move down here, and in addition to the first 2 parameters, you can specify the start and the end index position. So for example, without specifying these 2 indices, it's going to start from the beginning and it's going to go all the way to the end. But if I specify the start and end position, it's going to start at index number 2 and it's going to go to index number 4. So basically it's only going to use these 3 elements of the array. And we're printing it out. So let's take a look. Alright, so here is the first one. If you just do table.concat, it's just going to concatenate everything together without any separation. Now if you give it a separator, then it uses the separator between each table element. And now if you give it a start and end position, then it only uses those that range that you specify. In this case is from index number 2 to index number 4. And our next table function is table.create. So basically table.create is going to create a table. You're going to give it the number of elements and the initialized value that you want to put into each element. So for example, I'm going to create a table of 5 elements, and I want to initialize each element to 0. And I should give it a variable. So let's say local b equals to table.create 50. and I'm just gonna print out B. Now another way to do it is, so in this case I'm initializing everything to 0. It's gonna be an array of 5 elements, and each of those elements are gonna be 0. But say if you want to create like a 2-dimensional array, you can do it like this. Let me just copy this here, and I'll put it down here. Maybe put a space in there, make it easier to see. And instead of initializing each element to 0, I'm gonna initialize each element to an array. Just remove the B here. So I'm basically creating an array of 5 elements, and each of those elements are gonna be an array and initialize them to 0. So this is gonna give me a 2-dimensional 5 by 5 array. Let's print it out. And here we go. Alright, so let's take a look. So here, line number 4, that's the first printout, and it is just a 1-dimensional array where all the elements are initialized to 0. And here, down here, is the second printout. It is a 2-dimensional array, and again, all the elements are initialized to 0. Let's move on to our next table function. We're going to do table dot, and our next table function is table.find. Table.find is going to look for a value. So you give it a table name and a search value. Let's say 55. And notice I have inserted the value of 55 into this table just to make it stand out, so that it's easier for you to see. If I do table.find right now, it's gonna, and we should print this value. So this table.find is gonna return the index of the array. So we're just gonna have to print out this value. It's gonna be a number. Now, if we run it right now, it's going to return the number 5 because that's where the number 55 is found. Now, table.find also have one other parameter. So if I do this and I add another parameter here, say if I do a 2, that means to start finding starting at index number 2. So it's gonna start here, then it's gonna go up to the next index, and when it finds the first element with the same value as the specified value, it's gonna return that index. So even in this statement, it's still gonna return the same result, which is index number 5. But if you do this, if you tell it to start at index number 6, then it's gonna return a nil because it's gonna start here and it's gonna move up this way, and it's not gonna find number 55, so it's gonna return nil. Let's take a look. All right, so there it is. The first 2 are found at index number 5, and the last one is nil because 55 is not found. Let's move on to our next table function. So we do table dot, and let's see what's next. So after find, it is for each and for each I. So this is very similar to in pairs and in I pairs. So let's start with for each I first, because here we have an array. So we're going to use for each I for the array, and then for each for the data dictionary. So here we're going to specify the array name, and then the second parameter is going to be a function. So you can just put in any function here. For example, if I put in print, and press play, it's gonna print out the index and the value pair of the array. So basically it's gonna iterate through the array one by one, right? And for each element, it's gonna print out the index and the value of the array. On the other hand, if I wanna use my own function here, I can put function. And let's say if I only want to use the value and I don't care about the index, so I'm just gonna leave an underscore for the index, and the value, I'll just put value here, and here I'm just gonna print out the value of each of these elements. I'm just gonna print out the value of the elements. Let's take a look. So there it is. Those are the values of the elements. On the other hand, if I wanted to use, if my functions requires both the index and the value, then I would just do this. But in this case, it's the result is going to be the same as the print function earlier. If I have a dictionary, let's say local a equals to, and let me just put in a small dictionary real quick. Let's say up is equal to north, comma, and down is equal to south. All right, so let's say this is my dictionary, and I'm using the table.foreach now, not foreachi, but I'm using table.foreach. Let's see what happened. And there it is. So it printed out, and this one we should call it key and not the index because it's a dictionary, but you can see it printed out the key and the value for each of those entries in the dictionary. Basically, this is the same as the for loop. The for in pairs. If you do for key value, and while I'm at it, let me change this to make it to make it more specific, more correct. So if I say for key value in pairs, and my table is A, my dictionary is A, do. And if I just do print key and value here, I'll just copy that, paste it into here. It's gonna print the same exact thing. So table.foreach and the for in pairs, they do very similar things. You can use either one, it's up to you. And there it is. See script line number 7 are the first two up here, down south up north, and line number 11 over here, it's also printing the same exact thing, down south up north. Notice I have returned my test array back to an array from the data dictionary, and let's take a look at what's next on the table function list. So we've done clear, concat, create, find, foreachi. Next one on here is getn. So getn is basically gonna return the number of elements in your array. And let me just put a print around this. So we're just gonna print out the result of table.getn, and I'm gonna take a guess, but it's gonna say 2, 4, 6, 7. So it's gonna return 7. It's gonna print 7 out because that is the number of elements in my array. Another way to print out the number of elements in your array, or to get the number of elements in your array, is to use the pound followed by the table name. So those are two different ways to get the number of elements in your array. And there it is. They both printed out 7. So line number 3 is table.getn, and line number 4 is printing the pound A sign. Pound A is the table name. Alright, moving on. Next one is table dot, got up to foreach, getn, we just did. Table.insert. Table.insert is gonna insert a new element into your array. So for example, if I say table.insert 22, that's gonna insert a new element to the back of the array. But if I say table.insert let's say 33. No, actually, I would have to specify where I want to insert it. So say if I want to insert it at index number 3 and then 33, then it would insert the number 33 in at index number 3. Let's print out the table and take a look. So the first one inserts the value at the end of the table. Bring up the script, and you can see that our table now has 9 elements, right? Because we started out with 7 elements, we added 2 new elements. Now the first one here inserted number 22 at the end of the table. But in the second statement here, we specify the index where it's supposed to insert this new element. So we say insert it at index number 3. So here it is, index number 3. It inserted the new element with the value of 33. And then it pushes everything else from here, from 3. It pushes them down or up by 1 index. Table.remove does the exact opposite of table.insert. So I specify the table, and actually let's try with just the table first. So it should remove the last element of the array. So in this case, it should remove the number 7, and then the next one we're gonna specify which element to remove. So I'm gonna do another one, but this time I'm gonna tell it to remove, let's say, index number 2. So I'm gonna put in the index number. So the first one, again, it's gonna remove the number 7. The second one here is gonna remove the element at index number 2, which is the number 2. Let's take a look. So let's see what we have left. So notice number 7 is gone, it's no longer there. Number 6 is the final element, and the index number 2, which is the number 2, is also gone. Now our next table function is, so we did all these already. We just did insert and remove. So the next one is table.move. Table.move is gonna move the elements from one array to another array. So for example, if I say table.move a, 2, 4, meaning I'm gonna move in element from table A, index starting at index number 2 through index number 4. And let's say if I want to move them to index number 3, which means I'm going to move these 3 elements into these 3 elements. So I'm putting them in at I'm putting them in starting at index number 3 of my array B. Let's take a look. And you know what? We didn't print it. So let's go back. And we need to print the B table. Let's print both. But the A table is going to be unaffected because table.move is not going to change table A. It's going to change the second table, which is table B. But we'll print out both so we can see that. And here it is. So I believe the first one here is table A. Yeah, that's table A. So table A is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's unchanged as expected. Now on the other hand, table B, you can see that these 3 elements has been moved into these 3 elements. It would be interesting. I want to try something. It would be interesting to know what if I put this like at element number 4 instead of number 3. Let's take a look. Will it extend the array, make it 1 element longer? And I believe it did. There it is. So now our table B got 1 extra element because it started here and it adds the 3 element. And moving on, so our next table function is, we've done all these, we got up to move. The next one is table.pack. Table.pack is gonna pack our data into the table. So for example, if I have 23, 66, 55, and I want to pack that into a table, I'm gonna declare a table, which we're gonna call it table C, local C equals to table.pack, and now it's gonna pack everything into the C table. And one interesting thing is it's gonna have like an n element, which gonna contain the length of this table, which is gonna be 3. Let's take a look. Print C. And here it is. So first thing it does is it packs each of these values into an element. So you got element 1 is 23, element 2 is 66, and element 3 is 55. And the interesting thing here is it added element n, and that contains 3. 3 is the length of this array. Table.unpack kind of do the exact opposite of table.pack. So for example, if I declare a bunch of variables, local a1, a2, a3, a4, a5, I set them equal to table.unpack, and I give it the name of the table. Let's give it table A. What it's gonna do is it's gonna unpack all these values. Each one of those elements gonna go into one of these variables. So element A1 is gonna be assigned to variable A1. Element A2 is going to be assigned to variable A2 respectively, all the way till the end, element A5 into A5 here. Let's take a look, but we'll need to print them out. So let me just print A1. I can do this. It's faster. Copy. All right, let's take a look. So there it is. You got variable A1 through A5, and those are the values of those variable. They are exactly the same values as the elements of the array because we unpack the array A into those variables. Now let's take a look what happens if I do this. So I have an array of 5 elements, but I unpack them into only 3 variables. So only the first 3 are loaded. Let me see if there's any other parameters, like if we can specify a start and stop position. So table.unpack, and here it is. It's a table followed by number. I think we can. So table.unpack. Let's say if I want to do A, comma, 2, comma, 4. Right, so I'm unpacking these 3 elements into these 3 variables. Let's take a look. It should be 2, 3, 4, and there it is. And our final table function is, let's take a look. So we did clear, just to make sure. We did clear, concat, create, find, foreach, foreachi, getn, insert, move, pack, remove, sort. That's the one we didn't do yet. We did unpack array. So here's the final function, table sort, which is a very useful table function in case you want to sort your array. So table sort A is going to sort the array A. Just print it out, and notice I have added a few extra values in the array to make them out of order, and this table sort is going to sort them in ascending order. Here it is. You can see everything is in ascending order. The number 33 and 66 has been moved to the back of the array. On the other hand, if you want to sort this array A in descending order, you can add a function, something like this. Function. And your function is going to have 2 parameters. Let's call it I and j. And in here, you just say return I greater than j. Let's take a look. Now your array should be sorted in descending order. And there it is. So the number 66 goes to the front now, followed by 33. Then you got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so those are all the table functions in Roblox.